Hi, this is Misha, and we kind of have a special episode. It's going to be a bit like our Q&As, but a little different. What we did, there's been a lot of questions about a new product or a new series of products in the U.S. this year, 2018. The WBP series from Rogow, Poland, being imported by Arms of America and retail sold and converted by Atlantic Firearms. People have asked many questions about these guns, and there's first been a lot of confusion about WBP and is it FB Ratum, is it Pioneer Arms, yada yada. And then just about the guns, the testing. Currently, AK Operators Union, Rob Ski, is doing a test on the WBP Fox rifle. This one here, this is the import, is a sporter version, and this is my converted version here, which has been in several videos that we put several hundred rounds through. So there's that. But we wanted to bring some info direct from WBP with much gratitude to Piotr over there, who helped out and was kind of our contact. And so we did an online interview with WBP for you folks, asking several questions. Jay's going to read them off, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase what they were, and he's going to add whatever I forget. But we will post the entire transcript unedited online for you to look at. One thing, no, WBP is not FB Ratum. WBP is a private company, and definitely no, it has nothing to do with Pioneer Arms, PAC. They are two totally different companies. It would be like comparing Ruger and Colt. So that's an easy answer there. So yeah, I guess we'll just dive into it. We've got a number of questions, and I will say WBP was very generous with the answers. So
yeah, there's
it's going to be a while.
We've got 7 pages of answers here.
Small font, single space.
Yep, and Misha's questions were only like 1 or 2 sentences. So basically what we'll do is just kind of go through, like I said, I'll read the questions, he'll paraphrase, and then we'll have the transcript somewhere. Check the description below to we'll read that or see where you can go read it, because again, there's a lot of information here. Also, my Polish is super rusty, so forgive any mispronunciations if we get into some Polish names here. But so all right. So WBP kind of came out of nowhere, so at least on the U.S. market. So the first question that you asked was, when was WBP founded, and did they have any stories about starting the company?
And this is interesting. They gave a very nice answer. They said they began in the 90s, and they actually began by making sabers and kind of other things. And it seems like even from the beginning, they had a certain relationship with the military. They were actually selling like dress sabers, parade sabers to Polish officers. And it seems like they were just firearms enthusiasts like a lot of us.
Right. And it was started by Jacek Popinski, or is Mr. Jacek, I think, is the Polish name.
Which is where the Jack rifle, their Select Fire, comes from.
Right. So that's one of the origins of one of the names floating around.
And he's still the owner, by the way, folks.
Excuse me. Why did he decide to get into the firearms business?
It seems like their answer is basically because there was a need. There was a void in the market. Up until recently, in the last decade or so, all Polish males of able body had to serve in the Polish military for a time. And of course, they were issued things like the AKM. They were saying a lot of them had a nostalgia built up for it, and so surplus AKMs were coming onto the market in Poland. Of course, they had to be converted to semi-auto. They needed repairing, refurbishing, and so WBP kind of got into doing that, just working on them. And of course, as they needed to make more and more parts, they got deeper and deeper into manufacturing kind of incrementally.
It says here too that it looks like as the AKM, the 7.62x39 AKM, was being dropped by the Polish military, then a lot of these 7.62x39 AKs that were floating around out there had a sort of a parts availability production.
Yeah, because the Beryl was coming online around 97, and I think they pointed out that FB Ratum, the original Circle 11 factory, officially dropped all AKM production by the turn of the millennium. So there was no one doing it anymore, and yeah.
So it seemed like it was kind of them stepping into those shoes of filling that void, and after a while, after you're building so many parts for the gun, eventually you're going to be able to start building the gun.
Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of pure capitalism. There's a need, you deliver a service, and it's kind of nice that I guess they didn't just set out making, hey, we're going to make an AKM. They learn how to make, for example, sight bases. Then they learn how to make maybe trunnions, and then from there, they had time to learn how to make each part.
Yeah. So when did they start actually offering AKM pattern? Right.
And this is something I was curious about, because on the AK forums and the AK files especially, people have said, well, they're new, they just started this. So I was curious, when did the WBP start making complete guns, start offering the Jack rifle? Their answer was in 2008, so exactly 10 years ago, or maybe a little more now. But so they've been making complete guns, offering complete guns for a decade, so longer than really any American company that has been, 100% U.S. made guns. There were kit builds before, but...
Right. And it says here, too, as of this time, they've grown to 90 employees.
Yeah, that was another question I asked, how many employees? Because one site said 80 and one site said 90, so I was curious. So they have 90 employees now, which is...
pretty decent-sized operation.
Yeah, for considering how much automation is in manufacturing today, that might sound small, but that's a lot of people. A lot of your big companies you think of probably don't hire. For example, I know that Sam in Switzerland only has about 100.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The next thing he asked was, when did the partnership with Arms of America begin?
And this is more just jogging my own memory. I knew that Rob Ski tested a Atlantic Firearms kit build on what was called at that time V Project kit, which is WBP parts that were assembled here. That was in early 2016, meaning that rifle was probably built in 15. So I was curious, when did they first come in? It was 2013, according to their answer, so 5 years ago. So they've been sending at least parts over for half a decade.
Yep. And it says here basically that they were effectively sending out something like 60 random emails to random companies.
Yeah.
Just trying to find someone that they could work with to bring parts onto the U.S. market. And it was Blaine over at Atlantic that picked up that email, that communication, and sent it over to
Yeah, they basically just spam, like all those, they were basically almost the Nigerian prince thing.
They actually specifically say in this communication, spam-like messages.
Yeah, so, Blaine, I guess, took a chance and hooked him up with Arms of America, and, they kind of went from there.
Yep. When were the first AKM parts exported to the USA?
That's when we just did.
Oh, the 2013 WB project, you mentioned that. And then what is the relationship between FB Radom and WBP? What FB parts does WBP use? And does FB use any parts manufactured by WBP?
They did answer these, which I was kind of surprised that they would, and basically they said they can't really talk about it because of legal agreements, like non-disclosure agreements. But they did say, yes, everyone knows we use FB Radom barrels, which is, a good thing, so the barrel's quality. They basically, in a roundabout way, kind of indicated that it is possible FB Radom is using WBP parts, but they can't say which ones because of contracts. Now, the most interesting part there is they say parts that they make for FB Radom, they have a military inspector on site checking their work. So they are mil-spec tested and proofed. We don't know which exact parts, but we do know that they are proofed.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, he says here it's he said that FB Radom has been kind of like an older brother to them.
Yeah, I thought that was
very
neat.
open in helping and mentoring them, which is that's very
knowing that there's a dialogue, that there's not competition, and from Radom's point of view, they're selling them barrels or whatever, so they're not making the AKM. So, hey, they're reaching their own sphere.
Right.
So it's nice to see that there's a companionable partnership there.
So then you ask if there are any military or law enforcement contracts with WBP or what they've worked on in that regard over the years.
As expected, their first answer is we can't really discuss. There are agreements in place, and that the arms market has a lot of private, not illegal, definitely not perfectly above board, but hush hush, just kind of keep it quiet deals. The one thing I thought was interesting, they pointed out a fact that export numbers from governments aren't always exact. They said sometimes there are go-betweens, like you're talking about Poland, we'll call it country A to country X. Well, maybe country B steps in. So yes, Poland never sold to country X, but they sold the B, who then turned around and sold the X. And they do kind of give some vague indications there of, what do they say there?
Middle Eastern, Central Asia, East African, and West African.
And they also point out that not just standard issue military guns, but a lot of
police, guard, international security.
Yeah, kind of secondary, and they said that specifically. That's why you may not see their guns in parades, because they're not front line, but they might be used by like private security, whatever.
Sure. You also asked them how it was to design a firearm to comply with all the rules and regulations around export and import, and I like the additional note you have on here, aka how much vodka was consumed due to ours being the U.S. ridiculous laws.
That's the one question they didn't answer, if you noticed.
They didn't mention the amount.
Yeah, that's the only question out of...
They had to sign an NDA with the producer.
Yeah, they're more way... That tells me there's a lot of...
Yeah, right. They could not disclose that.
That was even more sensitive. Yeah, I was just curious what they thought about working with the U.S., and it's pretty much as expected. They said they were basically willing and happy to do it, but they didn't like having to alter their trigger group. Yeah. They really seemed to be not happy about removing the third pin, which most people consider an auto sear, actually in an AKM. Let me show you here. It's the one that would go here, this stamp. It's actually an out-of-battery safety, meaning your hammer can't strike your bolt tail until it's all fully forward and locked. They didn't like that. They thought it was a safety thing, and I get it because, So that was one thing. They also said they had to modify the bolt group, and what they meant by that, they had to shave off that little tail that trips the auto sear. So they were willing to do the changes. They also pointed out that they were very conservative with their first rifles, like the Fox. When they asked for approval, they weren't sure because the ATF can be fickle. That's why they didn't initially thread the barrel. They just didn't want to run the risk. Now this barrel can be easily threaded, as on this gun here, so it's not a big deal. But that's why they didn't originally thread these. So yeah. Anything else there?
One thing he mentioned too is he had mentioned the EU involvement and bureaucracy. You want to?
Yeah, it's an interesting sentiment. He was saying that while our laws and things like 922 are a pain in the butt for importers, for exporters technically, he kind of wishes the EU, Europe, its governing bodies were as concerned about their firearms and manufacturing, kind of giving them maybe that little bit of advantage. So he does recognize the benefit to American business that some of our laws might represent. It was an interesting take that you don't really ever hear talked about much, and to come from someone in Poland, no less.
Yeah, he said specifically, kind of to add some color to that, the quote here is, "We wish that EU bureaucrats would be at least as half caring about our interests as your government cares about you and U.S. interests," but that's another story, he says.
Why do I have a feeling that there's going to be a Republican using that in their campaign speech next time?
Another thing, too, is this was kind of an offhand comment, is he says, who knows, maybe one day we'll be able to set up shop in the U.S.
And that wasn't even a question I asked. It was something he just dropped, which... these days you're seeing more and more even relatively small companies opening up, blah, 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 USA. And, they could still do, like a lot of them do, import and then convert. I mean, that's what Pioneer Arms started doing last year. Yep. So it's nice to know they are considering that.
Sure. Why did you switch from cast to forged trunnions?
I think this one was self-evident, but I thought it was good to get it from them. Their early V Project guns, imported from 13 to at least 16, had cast trunnions. And basically he says that because the American market insisted upon it, he says that the cast trunnions were performing fine, but of course forged is better, but it's also more expensive. He points out that their military customers want what's cheap, and cast was cheaper and worked well enough. Forged costs more. Yes, it has a longer life expectancy, but most of their previous customers preferred cost over longevity. But when they realized, thanks to help again from Andrew at Arms of America and Blaine at Atlantic, that the American consumer really likes forged, they heard that and they made the switch. So it was basically because we wanted it.
Yep. What is the most popular WBP model in Poland and Europe?
I was just curious about this, and I think he gave a very nice answer. In Poland, he's saying it's basically a classic wood, because guys want something that looks like their service gun, which is absolutely logical, because that's kind of where they got started with it. So yeah, but he said in Europe, outside of Poland, they want more of the tactical, like this gun here. By that, he meant the extended shelf safety, the extended mag catch, the rail, instead of a rear sight and a rail here, and probably even more rails down here, so on and so forth. So apparently the more tactical versions are cool outside of Poland, but inside it's the traditional. One final thing he said I thought was kind of neat. They have just a straight polymer kind of economy version, which is black stocks and no real frills, and he said that was the least popular. So over in Poland, they really don't want the cheapest, at least on the consumer market. They'd rather have what they want.
Yeah, so it sounds like in Europe, it seems like it was like a lot of ergonomic considerations and things like that.
Scope mounting, yeah.
Right, sure. How popular are firearms in Poland?
I was curious, and unfortunately, I'll let you just quote him there.
Sure.
Yeah.
He says here, honestly, they're not really that popular. We would even say that they're fairly unpopular. We have probably the lowest firearm ownership rate in all of Europe. Most people dealing with firearms in Poland are hunters, so we're not really the preferred supplier for them. That is why our company is mainly export-oriented. The trend is positive. More and more people are getting into firearms, but as gun lovers, we feel that things in Europe are not going in the right direction in regards to gun ownership rights and liberties. A lot of people also own black powder guns like revolvers, etc., as these do not require registration.
So there you go.
What is the attitude towards firearms in Poland, and what is the gun culture like in your nation?
I think you'll just quote him there again, too, because, this is...
He says a lot of people would probably associate firearms with criminal activities. Not many see it as a pastime, hobby, or long-term investment. Poland is a very pro-American nation, so most guys are into U.S.-made ARs as far as rifles are concerned.
Which I find hilarious.
It's flipped.
Yeah, it's also funny that ARs are legal there. So it sounds like maybe their laws aren't the worst, because
it almost seems it's more of a cultural thing.
Right, availability culture. He also says it's kind of expensive, so pricing is there, but I'm sure there's permits and stuff, and so on and so forth. But it seems like it's more of a cultural thing.
He says it's a pretty expensive hobby, so attitudes towards firearms is, in our opinion, so. Things like Glock, CZs, and Sig Sauers for pistols are the most popular.
Well, there you go.
It's the brand names, right? What have you done to test your AKM rifles? Yeah,
I was curious about this, and it's really neat, I thought. He says that every rifle that leaves the factory, they fire at least 30 rounds through, which is more than the industry standard. Most places, maybe as few as 2 or 3, maybe 10, but rarely 30. But the really interesting part, he says when they have a new model, a new variant, something new, they actually do a 15,000 round endurance test. So this is what he says, guys, and I have no reason to disbelieve him. That's really interesting.
They say when they introduce a new model, they check the chamber pressure and the velocity of the bullet and fire 15,000 rounds and inspect.
I don't know many manufacturers that do that. I'm sure military ones do, but
right.
I doubt Kel-Tec does that.
Right. Well, and the other thing they said too is they get a lot of feedback from commercial shooting ranges, bigger customers, distributors, etc.
Yeah, he points out that like ranges in Poland that allow for full autos put a lot of rounds in a short period of time. So that's they really want to hear what those. And he even told me that before we started this interview in an email. That was one thing he pointed out. So I think they really pay attention.
You asked them then what they hope for the U.S. market.
Yeah, and seems like basically they just are hoping for the future. They seem very open and receptive, honestly. They seem really excited about this. Mm-hmm. And anything there you want to...
Yeah, he says that they pretty well, overall, looks like they're looking for feedback, for one.
Yeah.
And that they are really interested in being a customer service oriented company in the U.S. So
instead of kind of like a big behemoth, kind of more of a personable one-on-one custom.
Because he says they're getting a lot of things from that sort of hands-on type service. They're getting a lot of good feedback, which is leading to improvements. And I mean, we've seen that, right? I mean, we saw that with the original run of the pistols, then the next run of pistols, and then the rifles. And it seemed like the things that people were commenting about are things that they've specifically addressed. Yeah,
because when this pistol came out, people liked it, but some were complaining about this side rail, and others were complaining that the barrel was not originally threaded when they came in. Of course, I threaded this one. So when the next pistol came in, these already had a threaded barrel. They just had a small tack weld on the bottom holding a cap on, but it was threaded even with the plunger in it. And they took away the side rail, but then they added this rail up here instead, which is plenty big for like an RMR or really most anything, for what you'd want a 10-inch pistol. So yeah, you see a lot of responsiveness, and as we showed earlier, this also has the ergonomic controls like the Europeans seem to prefer. So yeah, and this is obviously the first version of the Fox rifle, but I can tell you one change they made late in production was to have this block here. Just a block, it's a guide for the cleaning rod. But what's nice about that, it's also essentially an unmachined bayo lug. So in the US, if we want, we can use a little machine time and make ourselves a working lug. So that was a late change they did to the Fox. So those are some things we've already seen firsthand.
Yeah, he says that basically the commercial market is a lot more demanding than the military market. But he doesn't say that as a bad thing.
No. He's just pointing. He basically says the military market wants.
Does it function? Are the sights straight? That's what he says.
But I think he says they don't even care if the sights are straight. Really, I mean, he says that is it in cost. I noticed he points.
He says nobody checks to see if the sights are straight.
Yeah, no one checks to see if the sights are straight, and cost. They basically want it working and cheap. Whereas the commercial, he points out finish is a big deal, and obviously sights being straight.
Sure.
So these are new standards they're being held to.
Right. Then he asks, what plans do you have for the future? Do they have for the future?
Yeah, you want to kind of paraphrase him
Sure.
there?
So basically, what he says in the answer here is keeping the quality high and sustaining growth. So those are things that are directly impactful for us in the U.S. consumer market, is if they continue to do well with the lines that they're bringing out here, they can continue to invest more in machinery, they can continue to make sure that their employees are happy with working there, keeping the level of QC and production
I did like that high. He mentioned his employees.
He does,
yeah, I like that.
Mentioned that. And he does say that, building to this kind of larger production scale, mass production scale, is very time consuming. And so right now they're focused on building off of the AKM design, and that's their first priority. But it looks like he's kind of dropped a few things here that's kind of interesting to me. A milled AKM.
Yeah, and to expand on that, he specifically says this is the first time they're mentioning this, but we're free to mention it to the rest of you. Is yes, it looks like we're going to see a milled WBP of some type, pending ATF approval, of course.
A short stroke AK rifle,
which would be like a short stroke, like a SCAR uses a short stroke, or an SKS,
an RPK.
Yeah. He mentions RPK, which should be awesome. And what's that last one there that I think people... this is just future thoughts, guys. No promises.
Dragunov.
Yeah, so just no promises. But he mentioned those are the things they are looking at. He even goes on to say there's other projects, but those other projects are too soon to talk about.
He says they have some things on the drawing board, not strictly AK related, but it's something that they can't speak of as today because it is too early.
But they are talking milled, AK, RPK, maybe a short stroke, and a Dragunov. So
it sounds like now AKM, what they've got, the tooling they've got, making sure that this line is doing what they want it to do, expanding there, then building off of that to the milled next, and then something beyond that. And then again, he mentions in the long term, who knows, maybe a WBP shop in the U.S. So that's the second time he mentioned that.
Yeah.
What is the likelihood for more calibers such as 5.56, 5.45 by 39, and 7.62/308?
All right, I knew this had to be asked. Guys, he says categorically, absolutely no chance of 5.45 by 39. He points out that in Poland, the ammo is very difficult to get, and there's no demand. There's just no one wanting it in Europe, Poland, and really in the U.S. the demand is pretty dang low, especially depending on the future of imports of ammo with the Russia thing. No one's really going to take, because you're talking about a huge investment, new barrels, new bolts, new everything, and what if the caliber completely goes away? If they already had, surplus kits like Tantals and barrels, sure, why not? But since they'd have to basically build it from the ground up, that's a huge investment in money and time.
Right. He does mention that possibly 5.56.
Yes.
There's no mention of 308.
Now, 5.56 is a different story. It's gaining in popularity in the AK world here, and more importantly, FB Radom is making 5.56, so there's a ready access to either parts or at least technology behind how to manufacture parts. So that seems to be the more realistic one. And 308, 7.62, NATO, he doesn't address one way or the other, so I don't think they even really thought about it, but it's something a few of you have asked me and asked online, so I threw it in there.
Let's see. You asked here, do you have any questions you would like to ask American shooters?
Yeah, I asked WBP that, so yeah.
Yep.
I think they asked us to kind of basically conduct a survey.
Basically, sure.
Yeah.
He says basically it would be cool if perhaps he could conduct a survey on what American shooters would like to see as far as AK-related products are concerned, aside from 5.45. Like what rifle type or which accessories we could design and produce next. This would be pretty cool as we could get a nice feeling of what the customers want / are wanting to be brought to the market, and then could try to design and manufacture the item indicated by you guys. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time Zastava, Cougar, Arsenal, even Molot asked people, what do you want? Now, this is the benefit of WBP being a small and private factory. The downside is they do have relatively limited production, which means they're not going to be able to send over 10,000 guns at once like the big factories. So cost is going to be a little higher, but would you rather have a mass-produced gun that you're going to have to spend a couple of $100 on or more to customize, or a gun that's more or less made the way you wanted it? Yeah, so that's a personal choice, but yeah.
One thing, this is kind of a nebulous question, so we may not get too detailed into it, but one thing that you asked them is what they would like to say to the American customers and others interested in the WB product.
Yeah, the last couple, I just kind of wanted to give them an open platform to...
Sure.
Yeah.
Basically, it looks here like he says, give us a shot. That's the thing that they would like to ask from us.
It's a very humble answer. He says he knows that they don't have the experience of those factories I just named, that they're not as well recognized and known. they're not at all boastful in that answer.
They said that they've been really, really grateful for the support from Arms of America, from Atlantic Firearms, who they said have been mentoring them and giving them tips and feedback. And they also say the AK files have been a lot of fun, and
AK Operators Union.
They mentioned AKOU.
Just keep in mind, last time, remember when the Pioneer gun went through AK Operators Union? I'm not going to say anything more than just look at Pioneer's response. Now the Fox is going through AK Operators Union's thing, and look at their response.
I'm going to read this direct quote because I think this is pretty nice. He says, "We are aware that we do not have the legendary credentials that renowned manufacturers like Couture, Zastava, Arsenal have. We are kindly asking American customers to take their chances to spend their hard-earned money on our product. A lot of effort and passion was put into each rifle by the people working here in Rogow, which is a typical Polish rural area. So it's nice to have someone appreciate these guys putting their heart into this. Many years back, Arms of America took a shot when deciding to put their trust in dealing with us, and look at where we are today." So it's kind of
and
nice.
like I said, I've been corresponding with Piotr through email, and he's been this equally nice and polite and receptive, and he's on, and WBP posts on AK type forums too. Directly, and they posted in videos, they posted a couple of factory vids. They really seem to be hungry, which is good, because that's when a company is at its best.
Right. Then the last thing you asked for is any final thoughts or ideas or fun stories fill on the Fox rifle.
This is a story they told about why this rifle was called the Fox. They said a few years back they had a fox hunter who ordered an AKM from them. He said in his experience it was the handiest gun, being light, but still a 30 caliber for hunting foxes. What he had ordered, he wanted a side rail and a thumbhole stock. Now his thumbhole was wood. And so when they were designing this to meet ATF regulations, they said they thought of him and his fox hunting and thought, hey, that's a good name. One thing I wanted to mention, they said when they were designing these, one thing they had to do just for us was get a mold, and anyone who does plastic molds knows how expensive they are, just to make this stock for us. In their words, no one else needs or wants this stock because this is for the U.S., but they didn't make this for us, for the U.S. market. So I thought that was neat. But yeah, I thought the story behind the Fox is not just like they pulled the name out of a hat. It has a certain sentimental or interesting value, and maybe there's a Polish fox hunter out there who remembers that story. If so, and if you happen to be on YouTube, comment. Yep. How many foxes have you bagged?
I think that's pretty much the gist of it there. He did ask us to mention the hard work and effort that A of A and
he's very complimentary towards both Andrew and Blaine in particular, and the companies in general.
I think it's, in exchange for this interview, I think it's worth our time to throw that out there.
Oh, definitely.
His request for sure. So, and that's it.
Yeah, as you can tell, guys, they didn't just give us yes, no answers, numbers. They really thought this out in very nicely written English, very polite and professional. And when he sent me this last email, said that he was really happy to do it and hopes for the future. So yeah, guys, you never know. The future's porous, things change, but if nothing else, in 2018, we've had 3 new WBP firearms, not to mention all the parts kits and parts. They've got FB Radom barrels. You know that's good. They've got forged trunnions. They work with FB Radom, and it seems pretty darn clear that FB Radom trusts them enough to use some of their parts at least some of the time. They make good, reliable, kind of modern style mags. It's hard to say. New is new, but it looks promising. And we've run, again, several hundred rounds to this rifle. We've run to the pistols. Rob has been testing them. So far, so good. No weird issues have cropped up. Yep. And the thing is, their attitude, if you were to make me guess, if something were to happen, like the gun's lost headspace, they seem like the type of company that would immediately fix it and apologize, not say, oh, the gun's fine.
Right.
One thing he pointed out, and one thing I actually asked him on, and I know Blaine has really got him on, is the finish. this is military grade finish like we were talking about. They were used to military customers. They are going to be doing a little better paint in the future. Now, there is park under this paint, so that's good. But the next batch, they're going to put a little more attention into that aspect. Again, they're learning, guys. So,
yeah. I mean, one thing too I would like to mention is we haven't gotten anything from them for free. They haven't been sending us stuff. Obviously, we're not paid by them. We don't make any money off this channel, period, except what we get on the Patreon. And that generally our expensive ammunition and fuel and time and all that stuff way outweighs what we get on the Patreon. So just wanted to throw that out there that, that this information, we went back and forth on the best way to kind of present this.
Yeah, so this is a new thing for us.
Right, so, and having this be an emailed text interview, we figured kind of doing a conversational back and forth was the easiest way. But I wanted to mention that specifically because it seems kind of like maybe we're speaking on behalf of the company or something, and obviously we're not. We're just really excited to have a personally me as a Polish collector with a Polish family, having the ability to get something from Poland,
something quality. I mean,
quality made at a reasonable price.
Yeah, I mean, a year ago we gave that's why we gave those Pioneer guns such a chance in the beginning, because we like Polish and the price was fine. But you notice when things went south with those, we were honest with you.
And not only that, but also the response from that company was not. Great either, as far as improvements. So seeing that someone is legitimately invested in making this work for the commercial market is really, I think it just benefits us in the firearms community, especially for AK aficionados. So and
it's been such a dry period. I mean, there hasn't really been much new from Romania. Zastava stuff has dried up. I don't know if it'll come back. Arsenal still has stuff, but it's pretty much the same stuff they've had. There hasn't been anything. So if nothing else, we're excited because we have 3 guns from a company in a year where there wasn't much else, and we love AKs. We do buy ARs, but they're just not as exciting.
AKs are awesome.
They really are, and these are running great. These are a lot of fun. We had this one out and recently, and still runs great.
And I picked my Fox rifle up today, so I'll be putting around count on it. So they're out there, they're getting tested and shot. So we really hope that this company succeeds and does well, because we benefit as people that want quality product.
I fully admit I'm a positive, optimistic person, but that doesn't mean I'm unrealistic.
Right.
But yeah, I will give just about anyone the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And so far, that trust has worked well.
So far, so good.
But yeah, if you'd like to read the full transcript, we will post it. We're not sure right now when, but you'll see it. And we'll probably do an update, and in 2019 we'll try to pick up as many new WBP guns as possible. So 545 ain't gonna happen. 556 though. Hey guys, the more you tell them you want it, the better chance. I think we'd all kind of like to see a return of something like a Baril.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe email Arms of America or Atlantic and tell them what you want, because WBP literally asked us to set it out there. We might even do like a poll or something and build it.
I mean, obviously, comment. Let us know in the comments what you want.
And if you have a question you'd like, we'd be happy to put it before WBP, and I bet we'll get an answer pretty quick.
Yep.
So... Well, if you haven't, check out some of our other AK videos. We've got a whole Polish. There we go. Instead of playlist, it's Polished.
We do have a Polished. Yes.
of guns, not to mention Romanian. We really like Romanian guns, and we like Arsenals too. So to check those out, and we've got a lot on the history of the stuff.
Yep.
We hope this was something that you found unique and interesting. We were really excited, especially getting these answers. I was really, really stoked. I thought there was some really great material.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have that information out there, I think.
Yeah, because there's not much on the company, and now there's hopefully something on there.
Well, if you like the video, please click like. We appreciate that very much. And if you haven't, please subscribe. We really genuinely appreciate every subscription we get. You'll notice that we comment and thank people who comment that they've subscribed, because it's pretty much our only way to measure our channel growth.
Sure.
So we appreciate for you guys to do that as well.
And if you'd like to really help support us, do click on the link to check out our Patreon page. If you can't, that's fine. If you can, $1 a month. We do Q&As kind of in this similar format from you guys, and we just do what we can. We try to bring unique stuff. I will say that I think for a small channel, we have quite an abundance of unique guns that you don't see elsewhere. So do check out our playlist. Well, this is Misha.
And this is Jake.
And we will catch you next time.
See ya.